Hi, I'm Imogen Kwok, and this is How I Host with Style. I'm hosting a cocktail party of dishes that I'm well known for, using techniques that I've honed throughout the years. I'm going to tell you some tips about how to host the way I host at home and put together a table exactly like this. When I'm having a large number of people over for like a cocktail party, I prefer to have room temperature or cold dishes. It's easier. It means that I'm not running in and out of the kitchen, opening the oven, all that stuff. And I just want it to be the least crazy situation possible. I can be more present with my guests. I can actually enjoy myself. That way things can also be made ahead of time and just laid out. So these are the pickled grapes, which is a nice alternative to olives for something that's like savory and has some bite to it. I think especially, I live in London, you're not going to find ripe fruits, for example, year round. So pickling something when it's in its prime to have later is a great way of like introducing that like zing and also that color to a winter menu, basically. This is something that I like to do, which is plating something which is a sphere on a plate, so it's like flush up next to the rim of the plate. So because you need a little lip to keep the pickling liquid in, and just in a single layer, tightly packed together. Marinated tomatoes. I make this tomato salad all the time. You begin by scoring the bottom of a tomato, so that's just doing a thin X, and then you blanch them in boiling water. You have an heirloom, we have the Campari, we have cherries. Because you've scored them, the skin is going to sort of come away from the tomato base, basically, in the water. So you pull them out after they've been blanched, put them into ice water, and then you'll peel them as so. This is also something you can do the day before because they should be sitting in its dressing, which is very simply extra virgin olive oil, salt. Sometimes I use fish sauce because that's kind of funky and it tastes good with tomatoes. And then acid. So I've used red wine vinegar here. Put them in a tray, you let them sit overnight, and because they've been peeled, they suck up all of the marinade, so they'll taste really flavorful, like through and through. So when you're plating them, obviously when you're shopping for them, you're gonna choose each one for their personality. Then when they're together on the plate, you can decide what's a nice balance of the larger ones, smaller ones, and just arrange them really nicely. I prefer sharing plates, especially when hosting at home. It's less fussy, it's easier, but also the interactive element of sharing plates is really important. Purple garlic flowers that are very beautiful, just as a little accent. My way of doing a cheese board, which does not involve actually any cutting of cheese into tiny pieces or slices or triangles, which I feel like people do often. And I like this in particular because it's a really good example of the beauty of negative space. This is something I talk about all the time when I'm cooking, when I'm thinking about the presentation of food. I think people have the tendency to want to crowd a table because they see that as like representing abundance or and having a lot to offer on their table, but really giving space for the food to breathe, for there to be and also literal physical space in between your dishes. There's still a way for it to look generous without overcrowding. The burrata has been sitting out, and you should let it sit, put salt on top. That sort of gets it moving. Just adding some olive oil. And it's nice to just sort of let it pool on the plate like that. It's always like a balance between having something taste good, having something look good, having something feel good, thinking about a motive association of what food you're choosing. But when we're thinking about the shape, you have to notice things. So we have this like long cylinder, and so it looks good next to the right angle of the plate, which is then offset on like adjacent with the pyramid cheese. And then next to it, we have those angles like with the straight lines and the circle repeated. I have stores in London that I trust. I have, like the farmer's market, particular people there that I trust. So I know that I can go in and like choose certain cheeses for their shape because I it's guaranteed it's going to taste good and talking to them about it. These are the pane curacao, similar to carta di musica. Very, very thin crackers, brushed with olive oil and a little bit of salt. They're very addictive. It's my own house. I can, put them on the linen. It's crumbs. You can just brush them off afterwards. So I've made a salmon riette. It's in the same world as a pate or a terrine, but obviously it's seafood based. You slow roast the salmon just with extra virgin olive oil and salt until it's barely cooked. So you just still have that nice smooth texture. And then you flake it up and you add a Meyer lemon, lemon zest, minced shallots that have been marinated in champagne wine vinegar, and that's your base. Then on top, we put this really nice layer of beautiful pink radishes. The prep and setting yourself up for success is really important. That's something I learned at culinary school and then in fine dining restaurants. Everything, whether it's your mise en place, whether it's doing as much as you can to set the table before people arrive, that will just minimize the time that you spend running around doing things when people are actually at your house. This is mostarda, which are candied fruits like clementine, fig, cherries, but they're in a syrup that has mustard seeds. They have a lot of heat, like mustard heat, like a spicy mustard. So, little plate of salt. I don't mind when people add seasoning to their food. I like it. I think some people are like, oh my God, I've made this dish and it's perfect, so you don't have to add anything. I'm not one of those people. So I like to add salt, I like to have pepper, I like to have like chili flakes on the table. If you want to add it yourself and make your plate how you like it, like go right ahead. The black volcanic cypress salt. Butter with fern salt. It's kind of the star of the show. So I'm using a nice stencil to create a pattern of like green herb powder. I'm not into doing butters and crazy whipped mountain shapes. There's nothing wrong with having a flat butter. And this is a nice way to introduce different flavor and also have, a nice natural like botanical pattern on top. So this is a standing cocktail party. We need some cocktails. I like to pre-batch cocktails for a party. I also like to make them very strong. And for a gin and tonic, which I'm doing now, instead of having just like wedges of limes, which I think, people, it gets like their hands are in it, they're squeezing them, it's not that easy to drink. I just juice a bunch of limes, so that's like your base. You add the gin, and then instead of tonic, I actually use sparkling water. And there's something about it that where the lime juice, the fresh lime juice basically makes you not think the drink is very strong. And so that's what I am making today. I like to put it in a really nice like glass carafe, like this, something that's really pretty. And then I keep that in the fridge. This is something you can make like even the day before. That's high enough, because when people are pouring, then you don't want it to be all the way to the top, otherwise it'll just go everywhere. Personally, I don't like the taste of tonic water. It's very overpowering, and so I think that if you have a nice gin, you don't want to ruin it, basically, by having tonic. That's a little bit controversial, I guess, but that's how I make my gin and tonics. Put everything in the fridge, so everything is like super cold and frosty. So you can have your pre-batched lime juice and gin, and then people can add sparkling water at the end to top it up, because obviously you don't want to do it earlier, otherwise all the fizz will go away. So these are those two there. This is the ice for the gin and tonic. Gin-ish, and they're in cubes. I think they're 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter cubes, and that's why they're paired with this glass, because it fits perfectly like this. It's very chic. White and red wine from St. John, which is obviously an iconic restaurant in London, one of my faves. So we have their house wine. So just thinking about the flow of the table, everything that should be paired with a cracker is together. So you have your salmon rillettes, the cheese, the mostarda, the butter, the salt. So all these guys are in the same world. Then flowers to break up the table. And then the pickled grapes and the tomatoes. And then the lead into the drinks section on the side. And you know, it's really worthwhile to do all of this, to put all this effort in, because it shows people that you care. It shows that you've put like thought and time and effort into having them over. And that really makes people feel like recognized and seen. Thanks for watching. I hope you feel inspired, and don't forget to like and subscribe here.